Hello friends and followers, welcome back to TJ's Modeling Bench. I know it's been a couple of weeks since I put anything out here on the YouTubes, but Tiffany over at Dirt Road Cinderella, and if you're not a subscriber to her channel, be sure to go check her out. She does some great work. She's got a real knack for doing some what I would call hot rod style vehicles. Anyway, she posed a community question a few days ago, and that was, as you've grown, what vehicle or types of vehicles, whether it be one-to-one or in model form, have you developed a new appreciation for? And my answer to that initially, and I told her on her video, is a van, right? So I'm the oldest of 4 kids. Mom and Dad, neither one of them were highly educated when I was younger, so money was tight. And I think the last new vehicle I remember Dad having was his International Scout, and then probably around 1980-ish, he ended up trading that in, and we got a used Chevy station wagon, full-size station wagon. And then a couple of years after that, he brought home the first van that we ever owned, and it was just probably a 1979, 1980 Ford Econoline 150 box van. I recall the only windows it had in it were, driver passenger windows, and then the 2 rear door windows. So there were no side windows at all. It had no interior seats either, except for a couple of wooden bench seats that the previous owner had built over the wheel humps. So you can imagine with 4 kids, that was something. You probably couldn't really get away with that legally today. There were no restraints for us back there. You hit a bump, you went flying. And then that one had a manifold line bust on him, and it caught fire in the street right in front of the house. So he ended up replacing that one with another Econoline 150, a little bit newer and in a little bit better shape than that one had been. And this one did have a bench seat all the way in the back that would fold down flat, so you kind of had a bed of sorts out of it. I mean, it was still too small, really, for 4 kids. It did not, if I recall, it did not have any other seats in the back of it, just that one bench in the far back. But it did have a couple of the side windows in it. Not the horizontal type side windows, but more the vertical style, like, a custom conversion van would have back in the 80s. But it didn't have the extra, like, captain's chair seats in it. And we had that one for a few years. I remember we still had it when I got my driver's license. So I did drive it a few times. But then he ended up getting first for us, a VW Vanagon. It was a Gen 3. And I loved driving that van. Oh, that was so much fun. Of course, it didn't have the power steering, but it had a great big bus wheel on it, and you sat kind of over the front wheels on it. So, and it was, I want to say 3-speed manual. Seems like it was 3-speed manual. And I loved it. It was so much, if I could find one in good condition now, I would probably buy it. I know VW came out with a new, version of that van, but it's all electric as far as I know, and I'm just not looking for an electric vehicle. So as I got older, like I said, we didn't have any new vehicles. They were all used vehicles, and I kind of, I don't know, that bothered me because a lot of my friends, classmates, they all had newer vehicles or new vehicles quite often. So as an adult, and then I got married at a young age in 91, and then had my first child in 92. Started off with a Geo Metro, little bubble car, basic. It barely fit me, my wife, and the baby, and all the baby stuff that you have to carry when you go, to visit family. I ended up trading that in for a Ford Escort wagon, which was a little bigger, still, it was a wagon, a small one. They didn't, back then, I don't even think you could get, well, no, that's not true. I was going to say you couldn't get a full-size wagon anymore, but I think Ford was still making the Taurus wagon then. But that was out of our budget, so the used Escort wagon was what we had. Had that for probably 2 years. Then my son came along, and I think at that time we ended up trading it in for a Geo Prism. So now you got a 4-door sedan, smaller one, and we had that one up, till I was divorced. After that, I was out of the service on a medical discharge and struggled financially for several years. But then in 2001, I was able to purchase a new vehicle to me. And I bought my first pickup truck. I bought a Ford Ranger extended cab, loved that thing. In 2005, when Hurricane Katrina hit, it got flooded out, so the insurance company totaled it. I ended up taking a job in Connecticut that winter. So I drove up there in a U-Haul with no personal vehicle. And up there, I would say, and Jason Hanscom over at Blue Ox Model Shop can verify this, but I would say probably 7 out of every 10 vehicles on the road up there was a Jeep brand vehicle. And 7 out of every 10 of those was probably a Jeep Wrangler. So I had bought a brand new Jeep Wrangler Golden Eagle edition in 2006, and I liked that one too. But the following spring, I was homesick for the coast and came back. And while I loved the Jeep, it was a gas guzzler. So I ended up trading it in for a full-size GMC 1500 Sierra extended cab. And the reason for the pickup trucks was at that time I was also building and flying RC model airplanes. And that's one of the things, you got to have a vehicle big enough to haul them around in. I wasn't going to get a trailer like some guys do, closed-in trailer. I was an apartment dweller, so there wasn't really a good place for me to keep a trailer without getting stolen. But the pickup truck with a camper shell on it, those were fine. And of course, the full-size, much bigger bed than the Ranger had. So that worked for me for a while. But then I kind of got out of the RC hobby. It was getting expensive. My GMC, after 7 years, it was paid for. I had 130-some thousand miles on it, and it was giving me fits. It would not start, and went through everything trying to figure it out. Never could fix it. One day you'd get in it, start right up. Next day you'd get in it, it'd turn over, would never catch flame. So I ended up selling it after I bought my first motorcycle. And I had just my motorcycle for a couple of years until I bought what I have now, my Dodge Caravan minivan. It's a 2013 model minivan. I bought it in 2016, so it's now 26, right? So it's 13 years old. I've got 180-some thousand miles total on it. I've had to replace the transmission once in it. I've had to do some other, minor maintenance, regular upkeep, replace the driver's side window regulator motor 3 times now. I'm almost an expert at doing that. But it worked out for the RC hobby. Because I was out of it and I kind of got back into it, and then I'm out of it completely now. But the great thing about the van, and the Dodge Caravan specifically, was that it's got all the seats. It's got the bench seat in the back, and it's got 2 seats in front of that, and then driver passenger. Well, the 2 seats in the cargo area and the bench seat in the back all fold down into the floor. I can get literally a full 4x8 sheet of plywood in that thing. So it was actually more practical a vehicle than the pickup trucks. Now, I loved my pickups. That was the first time I'd ever owned or really driven, for that matter, a pickup truck, and I loved them. But the van, I really fell in love with the van. I would like to replace it, but what I would really like to have is an old full-size boogie van, right? And I've got a collection of kits now that very soon, in fact, one of them is going to get built. But I've got, the 1977 Ford Fantasy. I've got the 77 Ford Coca-Cola version. I've got the Chevy Foxy Box. I don't know what year that one is. It's probably a late 70s if I had to guess. I haven't really looked to see if it specifies. I also have, from Stranger Things, the VW van. So this is a third generation VW van, just like we had. Now Dad's his was kind of a pale orange at the bottom and then a cream on the top, and this one will end up getting painted like the one that Dad had that I loved driving that thing. There was just something about it that was fun. In fact, I think I like it better than some of the original VW vans. Don't get me wrong, I'd still love to have one of those if I could afford it, but I'd rather have one of these to drive. And then I've also recently picked up the Aqua Rod Race Team Chevy van. So one of these vans is going to get built really soon. But another vehicle that I developed an appreciation for, something I didn't really grow up with. Nobody in my family had them. None of my friends had them. But that is the motorcycle. I didn't know how to ride one. I was an avid bicyclist, from a very young age, even into early adulthood. I had a road racing bike. Did that for a long, long time. But down here on the South Coast, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, everybody has a motorcycle down here. And after years of working with people who had them and just, wishing I could go and ride with them, I finally took a basic rider's course when I was 39. That was easier than I thought it was going to be. I really couldn't wrap my mind around the idea of having to shift and clutch with my hands and my feet, and but it came pretty naturally to me after the course. But then I didn't buy my first motorcycle until I was almost 42 years old, and that was a Yamaha V-Star 1300. So that was actually a liquid-cooled V-twin, and 1300 cc's is bigger than what most people would consider a starter bike. So I did kind of take a bigger bite to begin with, but I knew from talking to friends who always told me, said, look, get the biggest bike you can afford to get, because if you don't, you'll always wish you had something bigger, right? So I was able to purchase that one. It was actually a 2012 model, but I bought it brand new in January of 13. I turned 42 in April of that year. I had that bike. So I bought it in January. In August of that year of 2013 was when my GMC started giving me fits. I ended up selling it, but I didn't replace it. And I was working in South Louisiana, but living in Mobile. So I did a week on, week off schedule. For 2 years, the only vehicle I owned was that motorcycle. And in those 2 years, the only times I didn't take the motorcycle was when I took it in for service during, December, January area, both years. And then I rented a car to go to work. So I left the bike with the shop for a week, went to work, and then picked up the bike and brought it back home. And then in 2018, I bought my new bike, which is a new 2018 Yamaha Star Eluder, which is a 1900cc air-cooled V-twin, both cruisers. I'm more of a comfort cruiser guy than a crotch rocket speed demon. And I have some lower back issues, so leaning over a motorcycle for a cruise doesn't sound all that appealing to me. So the more upright cruising position was really what appealed to me. I don't know, you can hear that, I hope. We got a thunderstorm brewing. It's been hot as Satan's butt crack down here the last couple days, and now here in the evening we're getting our typical summer afternoon showers. So hopefully the power doesn't go out here anytime soon. But anyway, so yeah, the motorcycle I have developed a new appreciation for. So I'm 55 now. I've been riding for 13 years. And so the first bike I had I think I put about 67,000 miles on that bike in 5.5 years time. And now my Eluder, I've got just about 78,000 miles on it. I don't ride it quite as often as I would have because I have a different job now and I don't have near as much time off. I also used to ride with the Patriot Guard riders when I had more time off, because a lot of those funerals happen Monday through Friday. So when you work a week on, week off, you have more Mondays through Fridays off. Now I work Monday through Friday, and the weekends don't last nearly as long as they used to. So, but they don't make the XVS 1300 like I owned, but I do have the Tamiya Yamaha XV 1600. So it's similar to what I had, but it's not exact, but it's close enough. So now I did have mock leather saddlebags on mine, and I haven't looked in this kit to see if it has that option. I don't think it does. So it'll get built like this, but it'll get painted more like mine, and I'll insert photos here to show you the two vehicles, or the two motorcycles that I have and currently own. But anyway, that's my answer to Tiff's question. If you haven't checked her out, be sure to do so. And I am also now a regular on the Sunday afternoon builds with Blue Ox Model Shop and Scale Model Outlaw, Mikey and Jason both. Jody is part of that group, as well as who else? BG. If you're not familiar, look at BG. And who else? We've got, Justin Ryan is also there quite often. So look forward to that. And then I've got my videos coming up real soon. I'm finishing up the F4 Phantom and still currently working on the Scout. So until the next video, which should be here in the next couple of days, peace and love.